Hello and welcome to Kerbal Fuel Crisis. I am Gepwin, and if you are unfamiliar, this is my little Kerbal Space Program thing where I assume that the Kerbals have no rocket fuel left, so I'm not allowed to use any of the game-spawned-in rocket fuel. I instead have to mine kethane, transport it to my rockets, and make it from there, and set up infrastructure and things, which is mostly what this episode is going to be. Setting up more infrastructure for our base. So if you are a fan of the show, you will know that last episode we were able to fly out a couple of units for the main base, but the most important thing, the mining rig, was unfortunately unable to make it in one piece. We had a slight problem on landing that caused our mining apparatus to kind of explode. So what I decided to do was try a less conventional way of transporting the materials. Instead of building the giant cargo planes and flying out the materials with a big cargo plane that then drops them off and makes the return trip, I have decided that this episode I'm going to experiment with non-return aircraft. So this is the core of our aircraft. It's got the mining module, it's got another habitation module, it's got a little energy and part holding module down at the bottom, and then the middle is something from the extraplanetary launch pads that I want to try out. It holds metal, and that giant blue thing on the top is some sort of recycling bay. So I'm hoping maybe I can recycle some of the old plane parts and things once we get there, get some metal, and maybe be able to set up a launch pad out at the base. Now, something that I really discovered, which is useful for anyone who wants to do this stuff, a lot of the wings, especially the B-9 aerospace wings, don't like to play with the decouplers. So we had to put them on these separate little structural bits to get them to actually hit to the decouplers. Then after a little bit of testing, we discovered that everything's a little bit too close together. So I spaced out everything, made the plane a lot longer with those disposable spacers in between every part so they don't smash into each other when they let go. And other than that, it's a fairly standard plane. Flies very, very surprisingly well. In fact, I thought this thing was barely going to be able to get off the ground, but in fact it flies incredibly well and pretty fast. So I was actually able to make the trip over in not too long. One thing I found with a lot of these aircraft that I experimented with is they pull to the left sharply for no reason, and I don't know why. But other than that, thing flies pretty much perfectly the entire way there, which I was very surprised by. I think it's because everything on it is so light. And I think that's what allowed it to fly great. Sorry if I got distracted there. Car alarm started going off outside. Had to pause everything really quick. So what was I saying? Yes, it flies surprisingly well. So, really hoping to get right over our old base. Like, not exactly over it, because I don't want things to smash it on the way down. But get very close to over our old base. And then just hit the staging, and that will jettison the wings, do all the decouplers on the middle sections, and activate all the parachutes. And then all four sections of this ship should then fall slowly to the ground. So if I pull up a little bit here to try to give everything a little more room to separate, I think the wings may have smashed into the metal workstation there. But other than that, everything did fall surprisingly well. Trying to keep an eye on everything's pretty difficult, but everything worked very well, except the metal. I don't know why the metal workstation wound up falling so much more slowly than everything else. As you see, it just deployed as well. All the parachutes, everything, really fine. It's just a matter of waiting for it to hit the ground. Unfortunately, the main problem, this is a huge problem, in fact, everything wound up really, really far away. I was not able to get my altitude low enough to get a very accurate drop. So while everything's pretty close, it's much too far away from everything to be useful. I'm not sure how close the closest thing landed, but everything's much too far away. And that blue thing over there is in fact the recycling bay that fell off of our metal container. So we have no idea if the recycling idea would even work. I've never tried it before. I have no experience with the mod. I was hoping to experiment with it, but of course it doesn't work. So, of course, what we need now, obviously, is a crane. Because you know how much I love cranes if you saw my last episode. So we need to build a crane that is capable of flying out to the base. I'm going to make a crane that can fly out and then ditch its wings and just be there as a crane. It's trying to build a giant crane and a giant carrier plane, which I do want to build. I do want to build a nice, huge carrier plane that I can use for a lot of these things. So far, it has eluded me. So for now, we're just going to build this giant crane and fly the thing out by itself, which in itself turns out to be much more challenging than I initially anticipated. I'll tell you right now, this is like the 4th design. I'll have some in the bloopers that you can look at as well. This is probably the 4th iteration of this design when it finally works. But overall, very simple. I decided to go with the kethane tank for the body because if in the event that we need to, it'll then be able to transport kethane around the base as well as carry structural parts of the base. Large wheels, the large crane on the front. Tried to make sure it was far enough forward that I could carry more or less anything, large tanks or the little habitation pods or whatever we happen to have around. And then we put some stabilizing bits on the front. So testing it out, it does lean forward in a really surprising way. That crane is a lot heavier than I anticipated, but aside from the slight lean, it works very well, and the slight weird weight distribution doesn't seem to affect it. So after a few tests, this is what we wind up with. It's got large wings, large stabilizers on the sides there. And then what I'm particularly proud of is this undercarriage. Rover wheels cannot take the speeds that airplanes need to take off and land. So I decided not to land the thing. I put parachutes all over it so that I don't have to land. But takeoff was presenting a huge problem. So I built this undercarriage that has a little landing gear on it. And then the thing I'm most proud of is a lot of the time it wasn't getting off the ground. So, ditch the undercarriage. And the plane is now traveling fast enough and higher off the ground. When it ditches the extra weight of the undercarriage, it just takes off perfectly, same as if you drove it off of a slope. So, I'm particularly proud of that launch system. Now this thing, to stabilize it all out, I actually had to put more engines on. This has 4 sets of engines on each wing, so a total of 8. So this isn't real time, this is a little bit time accelerated, but I decided to put in the entire trip. It's because I haven't shown that in a while, so anybody who's newer to the series, you can see exactly where I'm going. I just have to fly across the ocean to get to the peninsula on the other side. But I also wanted to show off just how fast this thing went. It was incredibly... all these things this episode turned out much more stable than I expected. Last couple episodes I've been dealing with some fairly unstable and difficult to fly aircraft, and these two surprisingly well. I figured these would be even harder than some of the things I have been working with, but really nice. I mean, it took 3 minutes to get up to the small island that we pass on the way, and to reach the 1,000 meter per second cruising speed that gets you these shock effects, which anyway, I was just very impressed with how this plane flew. So the plan when we get there, basically, I'm going to fly this over, not the base, I'm going to try to fly it over the bits that we just dropped. And then it ditches the wings and we can put the parachutes on. I didn't want to try to land it because that would immediately pop the tires and then I'd lose all control of my landing. So I might have been able to pull it off, but I don't think I would be able to with these wheels. Also, I didn't really anticipate, as well as this thing flies, at high speed, it became almost impossible to maneuver. We wound up pointing slightly off of our destination, and it was almost impossible to get back on track. I think I wind up actually having to completely loop back around. You see here we're actually flying slightly sideways, which is just a bit weird. I don't know, I think the physics on this thing really weirded itself out. Attaching wings to the decouplers really seems to upset the game, and I really don't have a fix for that, unfortunately. But we're able to fly on, and it gets really hard to control. The slow speed, the high speed, the slow speed, the thing's just stalling out like crazy. So I really just have to struggle to try to get it back over the base area. Otherwise it's going to completely miss, or even worse, we're going to have to ditch the wings and land in the water. If we get this thing down over land, we're fine, because it's a pretty powerful rover. We'll be able to get it wherever we need to go. It'll just take a little more time. If it comes down in the water, we're screwed. So trying desperately to pull up and keep moving forward and avoid that large lake. Because it's very difficult for me to tell exactly what part of the land I'm over from this angle. And if I land in that lake, we're just never going to get it out again. I have to fly out an entire new rover or start over. So very difficult. Oh, and may I mention, I watched a lot of the stuff this week about the new about the new asteroid mission packs that are coming out, and I'm so excited that it's going to let you quick save everywhere. See, I would have been able to quick save right before I dished those wings, because they did smash together over the craft. Thankfully, no actual damage was done, and the wings get to just spiral down as we just let our crane fall. But yeah, being able to quick save everywhere will really, really help. So I really hope not all my mods break whenever that new patch actually comes out. I also really want to get the asteroids in the game, because I know for a fact, as soon as the asteroids are in the game, someone is going to mod kethane so that you can mine the asteroids, and that'll be amazing for this series if we can mine those asteroids. But the asteroids will only appear in new saves, so I'm going to have to do some editing around the save files. I know not very many people have played with it, but if someone does know a way to get your old save file to spawn in asteroids when the game finally comes out, I'd really appreciate it if you could point me towards the article or something. I'm not above hacking into the game to get things working. I just don't want to cheat too much. But I do cheat a little. You have to. Otherwise it makes really, really terrible viewing. So, finally touched down the crane, and surprisingly enough, none of it breaks. That I was most surprised by that this crane lasted the way it did. I figured something would go wrong when it landed. Explosions or, I don't know, just something. So, off we go to head out to the first section of the DRTP, which I can't remember what the acronym stands for. I remember thinking it was clever when I was making it. I think it was something like don't return transport pod or something along those lines, but I don't know, or do not return transport plane. I don't know. I thought it was clever. I thought it was clever at the time. Anyway, the plan is to move out and collect the furthest away piece and then drive to the base, and then drive back up the hill and collect the next furthest away piece and drive up and down in that sort of manner. The problem is the hill. This rover is having a lot of trouble getting off these hills. Once I'm able to crest up onto the ridge, it'll be really fine going. But on anything much steeper than the grade that it's on now, which around this area is everything, I think unfortunately it's just not going to be able to make it over. See, this has become a real problem. I landed in that little valley originally, not even thinking about it. I was like, oh, that looks like a place I can land and check out the kethane thingy with my little explorer plane. First episode we did, and, well, second technically, but first in the new universe. Anyway, decided to just check out the little valley. Got Jeb stuck there. Had to mount the rescue mission, which had me leave Shadman? Yeah, I need to look at his name again. He has a weird name. But then I had to leave someone there. So instead of getting him, I just left the habitation pod, and we started building up the base around him. I never had the intention of having this little valley be our base location, and it has brought me nothing but problems. With all of these hills and mountainous terrain and yada 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 da da. I could have just wish I could have found a nice flat valley to put the things in. Instead I have to go with this huge frickin' bowl. Now, after much more of a drive than I would care to admit, we finally get this crane to our mining pod. As I said, the mining pod is the most important part of this entire mission. This is why we sent the thing. If the last plane had actually made it with the previous mining pod, then I don't think this entire mission would have been possible, or necessary. Not possible. Of course it would have been possible. Wouldn't have been necessary, is what I meant. So, still messing around with the contextual menus, because as you can see there are about 14 controls, and I'm just not, what was the word I was looking for? I'm just not good enough to remember. I don't have the memory to put all these things into hotkeys. Like, I'm sorry. I know it doesn't make for quite as good viewing, but it's just how it's going to be. I'm never going to be able to hotkey everything, remember where it is, be able to pull it up later, etc. That's a technical term. Anyway, that is why I'm still messing around with contextual menus. That's why I'm always going to mess around with contextual menus for anyone who's rendering. So we have to get this thing close to the center of mass, which since I built this thing straight up and down instead of one of the sideways designs, should be more or less the center of the top, which is very difficult because it's on a hill and the crane's on a hill and everything's moving everywhere. But getting it sort of sideways should work fine. So all we really need to do is take this thing down the hill, get it within the 30 meters that it needs to be to connect it via the fuel lines in the attachment system, and then the magnet breaks and we drop the thing. Of course it does. So we have to figure out how the heck to get this thing reconnected to its magnet. Now I really haven't messed that much with the magnets before, so I'm not sure if you can attach the magnet to the end point on the crane without having a Kerbal do it. So I'm just gonna, after a little bit of messing around, I'm pretty sure that I cannot. So we're gonna have to send Cecil, I believe that was Cecil. He had a really weird name, so I'm not gonna be pronounce it. I asked someone else how to pronounce it. They read it. They didn't know what the heck it was either, so don't blame me. Anyway, we're gonna send him out. Now, hopefully, we're gonna be able to send him across the crane. Is really what I want to do. I should have thought ahead. I should have put a walkway around this, and then they'd be able to walk straight out and deal with whatever was on the end of the crane, but I didn't think of that. So instead we have to go stand next to the pod, then take our rover around near the pod so that he can climb up on the ladder again and jump back onto the top of the mining pod. So that's the plan. Now, of course, the rover is on a hill. The rover is clunky. I'm pretty sure I'm going to accidentally smash into the mining pod and destroy the thing, because, yes, that would be my luck. You've seen this series. You know how it goes. The clumsiness with the pilot is half of what's going on here. But, anyway, we're going to park really nearby and smash into the thing, like I said. Thankfully, it didn't blow up. Then hopefully we can have our Kerbin, not Kerman. His name's Kerman. It's not. Anyway, we can have our Kerbal, climb up the ladder, get on top of the rover, and then jump over back to the pod. A little bit of acrobatics that he's going to have to pull up there. Except that I can see the magnet is now sliding away. So instead of having to do all that, we're just going to have him run over and pick up this magnet that fell down right in front of him. So I think that might be a slightly better plan than climbing up on the thing and doing all those acrobatic stunts and whatnot. Now that he's holding onto the magnet, we should be able to just reattach it to the rover very easily and then lower it back down and pick up the pod like we were originally planning. So this thing is painfully slow to turn. Obviously, most of my rover designs seem to be. But finally getting it around into the correct position. Let me check really quick. I believe, yes, most of this is real time. This didn't take very long, so I was able to keep most of these rover bits in pretty much real time because it was kind of fun. So if you're wondering, this is exactly how long it takes to set up these things. And the one time that I don't want it to land exactly in the middle of the mining pod, it does. Obviously. Anyway, we need to get this down next to the Kerbal. Sorry. We need to get this down next to our Kerbal. He is going to then grab it and attach the magnet to that thing, which I'm not completely sure how to do. Like I said, I haven't played with the magnets much. I don't think that I can do it while it's on his back. So after fiddling around with this little spinny thing for a minute, I am able to, I have the idea to drop it, and then I can grab the thing, and then I can put it down. I actually wanted to attach, but apparently it's not magnetized, so it just falls right off the thing there. But we're gonna have to grab that little pipe end there and attach it to the magnet so that we can then pick up the thing again, like we did with the reloader module. But apparently electromagnet's just not on, and I don't have a way to turn it on unless it's connected to the crane, which I think is a bit odd. But thankfully you can grab these pipe ends very easily. They're not really pipe ends, they're attachment points. It's a weird system. And then we can pick up the magnet and then hopefully attach it. Or I can have the brilliant idea that if we take a Kerbal up to the top of the pod, then we'll be able to attach it much more accurately and hopefully get near the center of mass. So since it's already attached to our Kerbal, I figure why not pick up the Kerbal with the magnet? Seems reasonable to me. So we pick up our poor Kerbal with our magnet here, and then we will simply swing the crane over very slightly, bring the Kerbal on top of the pod, and lower him back down so we can attach the magnet. I believe I may have just discovered an entirely new way to transport Kerbals. And this is pretty, I think this was pretty fun on the planet. Then I started thinking of all the interesting things you could do with this in space. Like Kerbal tethers or EVA safety lines. It'd be so great. You could send a Kerbal out in an EVA, and then whenever you're done doing what you're doing, you could just retract the crane line and send him back to the ship. Be really fun and easy. Now that our Kerbal is back on board of the pod, we're going to just be able to attach the magnet manually, and switch to everything else on the map. You know how it is when you're trying to switch craft with the keyboard. But now we'll be able to attach the magnet manually, and I hope that the thing's on, because I don't have a way to turn the bloody thing on from our poor Kerbal here. I can't remember if I was able to turn it on. Excuse me, I can't remember if I was able to turn it on when I switched back to the vessel. Apparently not. That's a good thing to note. You can't actually turn these things on and off when they're attached to your vessel like this. But eventually, of course, we are going to need to actually attach the magnet to the pod. So, able to do that pretty easily. Now, I'm really unsure at this point whether that thing is actually magnetized or not. Remember, last time we tried to attach it to the side of the pod, it just kind of slid off. And that's really not something that we want to happen at the moment. According to the contextual menu, it is. So we're just going to try to elevate it a little. We're going to leave our Kerbal on the thing just in case. But able to pick it up, no problem this time. So, with any luck, we'll be able to have him have a nice, quick ride back to base. That could be kind of fun. No, we're just going to back down the hill. We're in this bowl. I've mentioned this bowl a couple times in previous episodes. Well, as annoying as it is kind of nice to have the base at the bottom of the bowl, because anything with wheels is just going to roll to the bottom of the bowl no matter what I do. Unfortunately, we do lose our Kerbal. But since he can't ride along on top of the thing, we're just going to have him run back into the ship here. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry, I meant to look up names before this, but there's two things I want to mention for this. One, texture compressor really helped the lag in this area. Didn't get rid of it, but I do recommend that texture compressor mod to anyone who is running this, so thank you to who suggested that. I do apologize, I forgot to look up the names before I started the voiceover on this. Also, whoever it was who suggested that I can hold shift to control my Kerbals and have them run, very nice. Anyone who doesn't know, because I had no idea about this, if you hold shift while you're in EVA on the ground, your Kerbals run, and it's so much faster. It's just so much faster. Didn't even have to use time acceleration or anything to get them across this gap, because I don't want to use time acceleration while the Kerbal attachment system magnets are engaged. I've had some problems with that in the past. Destroyed a plane. Just kind of ricocheted up into the thing. It was kind of amusing, actually. Anyway, thank you to all the people who have been giving me advice on this series. I really do appreciate it. Anybody who wants to offer advice can do so in any of the comment sections. I read them all. YouTube is favorite, but also if I post it on a Reddit or through my Twitter. Sometimes I'm on Twitch, but I usually don't do Kerbal. I've been doing some Diablo and stuff if you want to find that through Rashmelon. But Yeah, that's what I do on Twitch. Anyway, finally make it down to the base. I cut out a lot of that because it was all just rolling backward down a hill. Really, you don't want to watch that, do you? So just lower this down until it's to the ground. We just drop it off. It's right next to the storage tank. Hopefully we'll be able to get everything to flow very smoothly. I hope so anyway. I realized a bit before that the storage tank doesn't have the socket fuel connectors in exactly the right places, but we did bring extra. So we should be able to rewire it a little bit while we're here on the ground. It's one of the great things about the Kerbal attachment system. Though I do realize that I did not bother to check which side these ports were on, so I'm going to have to try to spin this thing around. But that should be relatively simple. It should just be a matter of picking it up again and turning the car very slightly. I really wish I'd realized that the first time, or I wouldn't have had to redo this. I don't know. I hate redoing things, but I'm often making mistakes in this show, so you're just going to have to forgive it as much as I forgive myself, which is not at all. Anyway, once again, attaching the magnet, picking up the pod, and then we'll have to try to spin it around. Unfortunately, I did hit the extend button and didn't realize it for a minute. Silly me. Now, I do something very strange here in a second, which is decide not to pick this thing up all the way. It did work out. As you can see here, I barely pick it up. I figure, hey, I only kind of need to move it. I didn't notice that one of the landing gear was in fact still kind of dragging along on the ground there. But I think we should be able to get it all to work out fine. In fact, it probably helped spin it around, being able to drag it around that landing gear. So of course I meant to do that, obviously. I meant to have it pivot around on that landing leg so that it was facing the correct direction and I could then drop it without any problems. That's exactly what I meant to do. Yes. So anyway, we're getting the first part of our base all set up. We now have the mining section in place. We have the storage tank in place, and we have a habitation pod here, and we have another we have another habitation pod on the way. Say habitation pod that fast. Jeez. Now, of course, I accidentally undocked the magnet when I went to turn off the magnet. See, this is just, I'm doing everything wrong on this today. Just insane. So, I know what to do. I'm going to have attach a Kerbal to the thing and lift him back up, just like I did last time. So, I have a Kerbal already. It is our good friend Sam Cal. Sam Cal, who has been waiting here patiently, just in his pod playing Kerbal Space Program, or possibly Hearthstone. I know it's not the same company, don't bug me about it, but still would be kind of a fun game to play in that thing. Anyway, poor guy's been waiting here on this planet for days for these things to arrive. He's seen them crash. He's been talking to the pilots across the way, but they haven't wanted to get out of their plane because their plane doesn't have ladders on it. So when they get out of their plane, they're not going to be able to get back. And I have some plans for that plane later on. Hopefully regarding some of the recycling systems that I was unable to bring in this mission. Now, we're just going to have to link these up. For those who don't know, with the Kerbal attachment system, you can just go up to any of these pipe endpoints and hit link, and it's going to create fuel transfer pipes that you can use to dock. They don't really transfer fuel the same way as your fuel lines do. They just count as kind of docking your ships up together. So they're able to transfer fuel between each other, but they're not going to do it as smoothly as if you had a fuel line on a stage or something. You won't be able to set up staging with this thing. So now we just have to, once again, lower the crane. We're going to try to pick up good old Sam Cal, drop him off on the top of our mining pod, and then he can reattach the magnet, and everything will be golden from there. Which, unfortunately, is becoming pretty standard. I'm glad that I discovered this way to move Kerbals around, though. Like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see what I can do with this later on, if anything. But for now, this seems to be our standard way to get the Kerbals on top of things that I forgot to put ladders on, which is most things. Actually, I am stupid. I didn't realize it until I just said that, but I can now use this thing to put the Kerbals back into their planes when they get out here, if I forgot to put a ladder on, or if the ladder is not working correctly. As you saw before, though, I forgot to mention, I finally figured out my problem with the ladder corners. For anyone who hasn't tried that, if you just put a ladder up to a corner, it looks like your Kerbal should be able to get across, but he can't. So what you have to do is put a inclined ladder on the corner itself and maybe connect that to a flat ladder on the surface, as you see in the back of the pod here. Not the pod, the rover, excuse me. Back of the rover here. I apologize if you can hear that truck. I try so hard to record when it's quiet, and the second I start any voiceover, a million trucks go by. I think I've complained about this before, but it's been happening so much last couple days. I don't know. So mostly this here is just me waiting for the perfect time to drop poor Sam Cow, because he's swinging so wildly. It's Mission Impossible. I can't remember the theme to Mission Impossible. Darn. Oh well. Mission Impossible, Sam Cal Kerman. Able to lower himself down very slowly. Someone should make a Mission Impossible video with this. I really think we should. Anyway, able to plug the thing. Then we can turn off the frickin' electromagnet. Unfortunately, Sandkel can't. We're going to have to switch back to the rover. Not the plane, the rover. Not the landing legs, the rover. There we go. I think. Yes, rover. Finally. That took way too long. Anyway, turn the magnet on, which I did not notice. I noticed it now because I'm watching this in hindsight, but yeah, quickly. I was so worried it was going to break that thing. Thankfully, those fuel lines are very flexible. I saw a video of someone send off a spaceship with those fuel lines connected. It got pretty far up before it started dragging the rest of the base with it, which, needless to say, did not end well. So we really just need to turn the magnet off and bring it back up. There we go. Now we have everything set up. We have our mining base more or less complete. We've got a couple of other little modules that we're going to bring over later, but this is the main bulk of the base. We have the habitation, the storage, and the mining unit. We are now set up to mine and perhaps even ship some fuel back to our to Kerbal Space Command. So I hope you've enjoyed. I'm turning this into a Thursday series. If you haven't noticed, I'm going to have one of these out every Thursday as long as I can, and I'll let people know via Twitter if I cannot. So if you're interested in this, you may want to follow me there. I'm going to announce them on Twitter, and thank you for watching. If you do enjoy this, please like and subscribe or comment, etc. I know I've gotten a few fans for this, and I really appreciate it. But that's it for now. I will leave these Kerbals to their mission of reassembling the base. I am Gepwin. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you soon.